to go, then they cannot carry it through. And that's why it's important for every single person to say no and not to go along with it.
So it's a propaganda war, or a propaganda game.
Absolutely. They don't have the resources. They're relying on people going of their free will to these vaccine centres, and then they're relying on just being able to make a call to people, telling them it's a criminal offence not to go, putting psychological pressure on people to go, and then they're relying on a very relatively small number of people actually saying, no, I'm staying in my home, I'm not going on any account, and waiting for the police to knock on the door and drag them off. And at that point, they will have sufficient forces, if few people do it, to actually go around and collect people from their homes.
Now, fear and concern for one's personal safety is a great motivator. Are you expecting, just as in 1918, that there's going to be a second wave of the existing swine flu in a mutated form, which really is a problem, accompanied by very alarmist media reports showing people dying in funerals and all of this kind of stuff, that's going to scare people into lining up for their voluntary vaccination?
Absolutely, it's already happening. I think the scientists in Canada have looked at people who died from the so-called swine flu, and they found that those people have the damage to their lungs, which is consistent with them having got the bird flu. And so, how is that explicable? I mean, they must have been given the bird flu, so they've been getting it from somewhere, and it could have been from the kind of contamination of vaccine material that occurred here in Austria, where normal vaccine material was contaminated with the bird flu. So they're already starting and trying to trigger this really virulent pandemic. The CDC and the WHO has stopped counting or tracking these cases, so we could be seeing a multiplication of these virulent cases already now in the USA and Canada. And at some point the media will focus on it. They will focus on the terrible deaths of these people from holes in their lungs and whatever. And in this moment of panic, when the vaccine centres are open, they'll be saying, those people who were saying it was the vaccine who got it all wrong, they were lying to you, it's actually the virus that's the real danger. And people in this fear and confused state of mind will think, maybe it was all lies about the vaccine, and they'll rush off and get their vaccine, which will then kill them.
Yeah.
And create an even more virulent virus. So that's
something which I realised just a short while ago was that in order to really introduce something dangerous to large numbers of the population, they don't have to vaccinate everybody. And just to illustrate the point, if I don't get vaccinated, but you do, and so does your friend, and then we all meet for dinner to talk about it, and I say, well, I'm all right, I haven't been vaccinated, there's something now cooking in your bodies that I'm going to catch simply because we shook hands over dinner.
Absolutely.
So they don't have to get everyone, right?
No, I mean, I think that they would also like to use the opportunity to put in people these nanochips. There's mounting evidence that Baxter and so on is planning to put into its swine flu vaccine these nanochips, and certainly WHO has put in place the legal framework and the technical framework to vaccinate everybody. So I think they really are aiming for maximum possible coverage, but to kill people they don't need to vaccinate everyone, they just need to vaccinate enough people to unleash this really virulent pandemic. Eventually people will just put on their face masks or use their colloidal silver. Sensible people will already be thinking of taking these measures. If there's any threat of a virus, they'll be having their face masks on and boosting their immune systems with vitamin C.
And D3, I believe.
D3. And so to try and reduce the number of people who survive by taking these measures, I think they would like to get as many vaccinated as possible, because this will mean the disease goes straight in your bloodstream, and there's nothing you can do basically once it's there. Okay,
so what you're flagging up here is that there are two scenarios going on here. There's and this all sounds very black and stark, but there's the genocide scenario and there's the total control scenario, and they can go hand in hand with each other.
Yes, I believe that's the plan. The WHO has, I understand, put in place this comprehensive electronic surveillance system already. And as soon as we get our nanochips with all this information about our health from the health insurance associations or whatever, they'll be able to track us via satellite and computers, whatever they have, for the rest of our lives, even if we survive the pandemic, the vaccination, the wars, the famines, and so on. So in this way they will have managed to not only establish one world government, but also a technical structure to control every single one of us on the planet.
We've had it told us by a number of insiders on and off record that this whole structure just exists already. They've got the databases, they've got a lot of information on most people. They're doing all this for a reason. This is like the final match that's lit to the fire, if you like.
Yes, yes.
So my question to you then is,